This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
City. We bring you the Nerdy Manroom Show with your hosts, Hassel and Monster.
Hassel, it has been quite a little bit. We were trying to get back together on the 1st of November, and at this point we're on the 13th because we have both been sequestered with work and travel and everything in between because it is getting to be peak season for holidays, and we're both in logistics, so it sucks for us. It's busy, very busy, but so before I bring that up so we can say, hey, when we get to Geek Week in a couple of minutes, we're going to be probably a little short on that because I know that I haven't had time for much. I know you haven't, but before we get there, let's go ahead and thank our sponsor like we always do. So thank you to our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles or in their store at 305 Main Street in Tifton, Georgia. Visit them for all your nerdy needs from comics to Legos, trading cards, toys, games, and more. Help them support the local artist community. Help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And yes, I cannot speak today. It's the changing weather here is killing my sinuses and my throat and stuff. So if you hear me choke up, that's the reason why.
and on a brief side note with the Zone, if you go to their webpage on Facebook, they have a pretty cool commercial they just had done this past week. It's a very retro style commercial. It's very, very cool. Very cool. I was hoping to get a copy of it to put on the show today, but go to his Facebook page and you can see it there. It's pretty cool.
Well, I saw a little bit of it because I think he put some of it on Instagram, but I didn't. It's been such a crazy couple of weeks here because I have been on the road since the last time we talked. And like I said, I mentioned the change in weather. It was 80 degrees 2 days ago, snowing yesterday. So, yeah. It's like
a bipolar woman.
Yeah. I'm not going there saying that.
Hey, Georgia throws some Powerball numbers out for temperatures, so it's all over the place for us too. We just don't get snow. So,
but with that, like I said, we're not going to do a lot of Geek Week updates because I can only speak for me, and I know I haven't had a chance to do a whole lot. But there are a couple of things we did want to touch on. First of all, it was Veterans Day 2 days ago as we record this, so we want to say thank you to everybody who served and gave their life and their time and their energy to make sure we have the freedoms that we have. And we also wanted to mention a couple of days ago, we had the passing of our generation's Batman and probably the one who will be the voice of Batman forever for us, Mr. Kevin Conroy. I think he passed away. I think he was 66 years old. Actually, it was 10 days short of his birthday. He passed away and his birthday was the 30th. So 20 days short, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, He was just short of his 67th birthday, and I had not heard a single word about him being sick. So, I mean, they kept it pretty quietly under wraps.
They done an excellent job of keeping that quiet because, I mean, he was still doing interviews and everything. So, I mean, I guess he was a fighter all the way to the end. But it's very sad because, I mean, he'll forever be our Vengeance the Night Batman. So, I watched a few episodes of the animated series last night just to, kind of pay a little respect, and it's just sad.
I think along with that, you probably will not hear Mark Hamill come back as the Joker either, because he expressly said several times that he didn't really want to do it anymore, just to move on. And but he's come back a couple of times just because Kevin Conroy came back too, and they were such good friends. So I don't think you'll ever see him play the Joker again either, out of respect and just because he was, like I said, ready to move on and do something different. Because he did that role for God knows how many years. He started doing it in the 90s, and he was still doing it a few years ago.
Yeah, so he's probably retired as well, as you said. Because I don't see him really being opposite of anyone else. Because the few guys that, and I know not Jensen Ackles, who is amazing on Supernatural and some other things. It's just, you hear someone else in there, it's like, ooh, You're not Batman. Get the
Yeah,
hell out of there.
there's a couple of them that have done decent, but it still just doesn't. Like Bruce Greenwood, I think is his name, that does it sometimes on like Young Justice and stuff, and he sounds okay, but it just, I don't know. It just doesn't. It's not the same. So. But speaking on that same sort of topic, of it not being the same, I did go watch Black Panther 2 yesterday evening, which is the only thing I've gotten to do for a Geek Week update, honestly. Really, really good movie, really well done. I enjoyed it a lot. I will say that, and this is not a spoiler by any means, but, Shuri as Black Panther just doesn't do it for me. I just was not invested in her character, and it was nothing against her. As the character of Shuri, she did a great job, but as Black Panther, I just didn't have a vested interest. But the rest of the movie was so good that almost didn't matter. There's a little bit of it that matters, but for the majority of it, it really didn't, because the movie was so well done. And I will say that Namor was really well done. The guy who played him was fantastic.
Well, he is actually the only reason I really want to see that. And it's not. I love the Black Panther movie. I did. I just had much rather. I'd rather have seen a recast myself. And I understand paying tribute, honor, and so forth and so on. I know they touch on it, and I've heard about the mid-credit scene. I believe it is. So I get it, but she's an interesting enough character without her having to fill the role of Black Panther. I know they went that route in the books, a few years ago, but I had just rather seen her get either her own spinoff movie or a Disney Plus, 6, 7 episodes, and I'd have been totally invested with that. To me, I don't care to see her as Black Panther on the big screen.
No, I didn't care for her as Black Panther. Like I said, she did a great job for Shuri. It's just I don't care about Shuri as the Panther. I will say this, though. The other thing that really got me pretty good was that Ironheart being in the movie looked so much better in that movie as the character as Ironheart than any of the toys or pictures that they have released of her.
Oh,
those
really?
those things look like trash, but in the movie she looked fantastic.
Is there a mid-credit and an end-credit scene, or just a mid-credit?
Just a mid-credit. This Marvel one just did a mid-credit. Now I will say this: I know at the end of it they put a respect page right after the mid-credit scene. They put a respect to Chadwick Boseman, but the Marvel Studios logo, as it scrolls across instead of showing scenes from different characters, every scene was of him as Black Panther.
That's cool. That's
yeah,
cool.
And they did the background, instead of it being red, it was purple.
That's pretty cool. He was actually he took that role so good and was he done such a great, amazing job. Yes, it is hard to see someone else feel those claws, so to speak. But I don't know. I still rather have seen it. But much respect to him, he did a great job, and it was terrible. When he went like he did.
Yeah, and I mean, very similar to Kevin Conroy, though. They never said a single word. Nobody knew until it's like, oh, you passed from some sort of cancer, but nobody had a single clue.
Well, it was literally like just a few months before, he passed that some pictures started leaking of him online, and I think he was coming from treatment where he looked so sickly. And, unfortunately, the media, the way that it is, terrible rumors got out, and they were speculating that, he was, doing things he shouldn't have been doing. And it was like, come on. And then, you find out he was actually battling cancer the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, media is never a good thing to get into, because they're going to put their spin on whatever they want to do.
Well, they're popping a headline and a rating, and that's all they're giving a damn about. They don't care about the truth anymore, sadly.
Yeah. But
except for us here at the Nerd Room, we do.
Well, before we delve too far into the realm of media and news, and probably offend half the people who watch, which are very few anyway, but why don't we just move straight into our focus topic, because we had a pretty big one this week we wanted to do. This was one that just, out of the blue, we decided, hey, let's do this. Let's pick one of our comic lines or comic companies and say, how would we reboot them with just 7 titles? Let's pick 7 titles and say, okay, this would be our linchpin of our company. We could expand upon this another time, maybe do more, but let's take 7 titles and say,
this is our launching point.
Yeah. So with this, we decided to pick Marvel for this first round. We'll do DC at another time and work through them as well, but let's start with Marvel this time. And we only had a few criteria, so let's share that first. Requirements, we said 3 solo titles, 3 team titles, And then one, as we put it, dealer's choice, Tyler. You can make it a team, a book, a solo book, however you want to do it. And we're going to give you who the main protagonists are, who the main villains of the story are, and maybe a high-level overview of the story arc, but not getting into it too deeply so that we don't take up too much time, because if we did that, we'd be here for a couple of days, and we do have at least a little bit of a time limit, so we can kick straight into that. You want to do solos or you want to do team books first?
Oh, we can go into solos.
All right. So why don't we do like we normally do? You do one, then I'll do one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give a spoiler right now. My 3 solo books. There is not a Captain America, there is not a Thor, and there is not an Iron Man, because to me, they are the trinity you have to have for an Avengers title.
So in fairness, I have the same.
So if we're limiting the books, I don't need a Thor title and him in Avengers. So I eliminated that and just started, I wanted to focus on 3 characters.
So since you brought that up, I did that very same thing. But when I looked at this and I started building my team books versus my solo, I made sure that no character overlapped into multiple books so that I could focus on them in what they were in versus saying, okay, this person's in a solo book, but I'm going to, it's like Wolverine appearing in 30 titles. I just need him in one team book or something or a solo. I don't need him in both.
Yeah, because while there's been some great story arcs with all 3 of those characters, and even Wolverine, like you just said, they're better in the team environment to me.
Well, it messes
they'll
with
on their backstory here or there, but
it messes with the timeline too, because I'm like, so when did this happen? Because he's over here doing this week, and he was there last week.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, it's his mutant power multitasking. I don't know.
He got more time on the day than any other man in the Marvel universe. I will say.
Yeah, he got like 29 hours in one day,
and sleeps none of them.
Yeah,
he's methering, so it is what it is. I went for my first title is without a doubt Amazing Spider-Man, and he is going to battle a group called Hellfire, which is going to be Carrion, Demogoblin, Doppelganger, and the Molten Man. That's who he's battling.
That was a group I didn't expect.
No, I mean, I just, these were some characters from the 90s when I was a young lad and, picking up Spider-Man that they just intrigued the hell out of me. Certain aspects of their character or powers were really cool. A lot of times they were more in Spectacular Spider-Man. They didn't get the amazing treatment very much, but they were in Spectacular a great deal. And so it just always kind of, intrigued me. And my Demogoblin's going to be Jason Mendel. Because, he had the, he went the Hobgoblin route, and then he kind of, accepted the demon, and then Hobgoblin got a little demonish, and then he just became Demogoblin every time. So, I don't know. I thought it'd be a pretty cool story arc.
That is interesting. Along with that, my first solo title was Amazing Spider-Man as well. I think he's, as much as I like Spider-Man and the Avengers occasion, I think he does better as a solo.
He does.
So my main character, of course, is Spider-Man, and it's Peter Parker. But what I did do is because I when I looked at all these and said, what would I do for an arc? I looked at the whole year. So I said, after about 5 or 6 months, what I would do is, because of what I've got, and I'll share the villains in a minute, but because of the storyline I've got, I figured is halfway through he's going to need help, so he's going to have the 2 Scarlet Spiders, both Ben Reilly and Kane, join him.
Ooh, I'm a fan already.
So for the last 6 months, you've got the 3 Spider-Man, basically the 3 Peter Parker Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six, led by Doc Ock, with Lizard, Kraven, Vulture, Sandman, and Mysterio. See, I want the first 6 months for each one to face Peter solo, and then Doc recruit them at the end of the book. And then the next 6 months, he has to start fighting them, but that's when he has the other 2 Scarlet Spiders come in to help him, because it's too much for one person sometimes with them.
That's something, as the biggest Spider-Man fan as I am, it always would kind of drive me crazy how he beat 6 of his major villains together solo. It's like, dude, no.
Yeah.
So that just makes a lot more sense. And it takes 3 Spider-Man to beat the Sinister Six. That sounds amazing. I would buy the fuck out of that.
Yeah,
big props.
And did I read through the names of the rest of the 6? Because I can't remember if I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And believe me, it was hard for me not to go that route of the Sinister Six because I mean, it's the go to for launching points of Spider-Man. But that's why I just went obscure myself. But yeah, it's oh man, that sounds so good.
And again, I made these as year-long arcs, and yeah, I'm not sure how I do it in depth throughout the entire year, but that's just kind of an overview of what I'd like to see. So, what do you have next?
Oddly enough, I went with the Hulk.
Oh,
Just because I wasn't putting him in the Avengers, and he is such a linchpin of the Marvel universe. I mean, his book solo title don't often get enough love as it should, but there's some pretty great stories. So basically, what I got is my main villain is the leader. However, he has brainwashed She-Hulk and Daredevil. And Daredevil is actually, you don't even know it's Daredevil. He's actually going by Justice. He's in a different costume. The leader has somehow duplicated the Sentry's ability to soothe the Hulk. So not only is he, able to calm him down where he's not so rageful and powerful, he has his cousin, who he knows is his cousin, is an evil Jim Walters. And you don't know Daredevil's Daredevil. And he's trying to turn Hulk back into war. He wants to brainwash him and turn him back into war like Apocalypse did. Because with these three people and him, they'd be their own version of the Four Horsemen and take over the world.
that's interesting. And I apologize, I had missed something that I was supposed to put in here earlier, so I was adding to my notes here while you were talking. So my secondary title was I wanted to go something mystic because I think that Marvel does a lot of mystic stuff, and at times we miss it. But I went Doctor Strange for my second one. Yeah, obviously with him as the main protagonist, and I almost went to his old standbys of Baron Mordo or Dormammu for the villain, but then I had a last minute thought, said maybe what do I do? What would it be like if it was Lilith versus Mephisto at war with each other, and they're using Earth as the staging ground for all their battles? And Doctor Strange has to stem the chaos from that.
It's pretty cool, actually. I like that.
I'm not sure. I mean, that would have to be one I'd have to figure out how to play it that long for a year. But that just sounds to me like it would be like, okay, these two are using Earth as their chessboard in their battles, and then Strange is having to deal with that. The chaos fall out from it, so you can't really directly go affect them until he gets to a certain point that he could actually take the time to fight them.
Yeah, because you're not fighting two Ham and Eggers here. You got pretty much Satan and the mother of all demons. So I mean, these are two very powerful entities.
Yeah, and they could keep things, they could keep things tied up for him for a long time before he could go deal with them.
Yeah, I can see both of them also trying to seduce him to pull him to their side because to be the tipping point to the war between the two.
Yeah.
Interesting, actually. A lot of that.
Excuse me. So what do you have for your third solo?
Well, I kind of went mystic supernatural as well. You know me well enough to know I'm not having a Marvel universe without Ghost Rider. But I'm doing Ghost Rider Reborn, Danny Ketch style. So basically, Zarthos returns. He seeks out Johnny Blaze and tears his spirit of vengeance out of him, absorbing it into himself, becoming more powerful because he's not only Zarthos, but he is sucked in a spirit of vengeance. And then he kills Johnny in a very gruesome way, an extremely gruesome way. So this not only pisses Danny off, obviously, as his brother, but it reawakens Noble Kale from where he's been slumbering in heaven, so to speak, seeing as he is the spirit of vengeance and the true angel of death. And he comes back to Earth, rebonds with Danny, and they go on a mission. And all of my stories are year long as well. So they go on a mission to seek out Zarthos and put an end to him once and for all.
I actually like that because I'm a Ghost Rider fan, but I have a hard time reading any of the books other than Danny's. Like even like the current one, like you said, it's rough.
Yeah,
they just never know where to go with Johnny past. Oh, he's a flaming motorcycle guy, and
yeah,
Danny actually has story arcs.
I'm not sure, other than that, maybe they liked his origin better. I don't get why they keep going to Johnny. He is not the better of the Ghost Riders. I mean, to me, he was always coolest when he was in Danny's book, and he was actually toting the Hellfire shotguns, searching him out because he thought he was Arthos.
Yeah.
Like when he actually performed a spell and accidentally captured Doctor Strange. Shit like that. I mean, that was cool, you know.
Yeah.
But once he got to be a Ghost Rider again, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, and I didn't have them listed, but I'm sure that, you know, in a year-long arc of the Doctor Strange I had, I'd probably have to pull some of the Mystic characters in, like maybe have a cameo from Shaman or have Ghost Rider in a couple issues or something.
Well, see, the cool thing about a year long with this right here, I could pull Lilith in at some point. I could pull Centurious, the Soulless Man in. I mean, Blackout, some of the really cool villains, Hellgate, a few of these guys, and Vengeance would definitely have to show up at some point because I always loved him. He was such a cool, conceptually character. And he just returned about a year or so back, and they've done nothing with him.
Yeah.
It's like they've done a return book, a solo return, which was really good because Howard Mackey wrote it. And then they haven't brought him in any.
Yeah, they've just kind of, for the 50th anniversary of Ghost Rider, it's been lackluster for him, honestly.
Very, unfortunately, very. So what do you have for your third? Oh no, we don't went and moved through the three yet.
No, I haven't done my third solo.
Okay.
Mine, I needed to get to the cosmic setting because Marvel has such a vast cosmic cosmic setup, and they never really get into it a whole lot. Versus, they'll have an occasional one or two here or there, but I went with Silver Surfer, which surprisingly for me, because I'm not a huge Surfer fan, but I thought he would be the best character to have for exploration into different parts of space and stuff. I don't have to stick just close to Earth like with Quasar and Nova. I don't have to stick, you know, to the Kree galaxy or whatever. I wanted somebody who gets around everywhere, and that would be Surfer. But for him, I had like a couple of, you know, other characters in the book too. I'd want to have Pip the Troll and Frankie Ray's Nova in there with him just for, you know, companionship in part of it. But I also want Thanos as like a shady informant and advisor for him to pop up occasionally, give him a little bit of information, because I don't want him as the villain. What I actually want as the villain is Annihilus, and I want him to have, I want like a zombified Galactus, not a zombie, but like he looks like a zombie, he's starving, but that's because Annihilus has affected him with his bugs and is using him to destroy strongholds and areas of the universe so that it basically create havoc so that he can work his way in to try and take over the universe again. And
so they're siphoning cosmic energy off of Galactus, basically.
Yeah, that, and they're using him, like they're mind controlling him as well because he's so weak that the bugs are actually controlling him like an infection. You're basically like having the flu or something, right? And he's just lashing out and destroying places in the universe, that's giving Annihilus a chance to try to invade again. But Nova finds Silver Surfer to say, hey, this is happening, I need your help, because he's not the herald she is. And then they're trying to stop Galactus and then figure out what's going on, and then you find out by the end, because Thanos already knows, but he won't give him a straight answer. So he's just kind of letting it go on, but, you know, kind of guide occasionally. Yeah. So, but eventually they find Annihilus and they have to defeat Annihilus and free Galactus and stuff. But that would be my year-long arc with them.
I like that. I can see Pip and Surfer kind of being like a buddy comedy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I almost went with the old not mindless, but the childlike minded Drax for that. Like the 90s animated show had the two of those with him all the time. I was like, I'll leave Drax out. I'd rather have another powerhouse like Nova with him, and they don't know what's going on. They're trying to save the universe from Galactus at the same time they're trying to save him from Annihilus, really.
That's actually pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I'm not really a Surfer fan, so that one was hard for me.
Yeah, our former associate, the Beak, he'd love you.
Oh man, I'm gonna leave that one alone and just move right on to team titles.
All right. So for my first team title, The Mighty Avengers. Like I said, you can't have Marvel Universe without the Trinity, but I don't want it on a solo. So obviously, Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man. With my Iron Man, there is a twist. There is a twist. See, in my Marvel reboot, Tony Stark is actually dying of cancer caused by the extremists that he used years prior. But no one knows it. Only he knows it, and the guy that is his Iron Man, which will not be Rhodey. So for a majority of this title, it's going to kind of be a mystery as to who Iron Man really is.
Okay.
And he's going to also have an updated version of the Silver Centurion armor. my favorite armor. So he shows up and he's like, basically like, hey, look, I'm Iron Man, Shellhead, whatever you want to call me. However, I'm not Stark. Mr. Stark's busy. He don't have time to fool with y'all. So I'm here. So it goes back to, cause that was one of the things I kind of liked a lot in the 80s and 90s was before it became public, he was supposed to be an employee of Stark.
Right.
So you go back to that right there, that dynamic right there. And then throughout the year, you'll kind of slowly learn that, Tony actually has cancer. Like if he does show up on maybe like a video call with Cap and them to confirm things, he'll use an image inducer to look healthy, like he's on an island or something like that when he's actually dying in a bed. And eventually, when it is played out as to who my Iron Man really is, it's going to be Ben Reilly, who is trying to redeem himself for all the shit he's done as of late.
Interesting take.
Yeah, I had to have my clone in there somewhere. So, yeah, this is where I kind of eased him in there. And plus, it's a redemption story for him as well. But not being redeemed through Peter Parker Spider-Man. So to round my Avengers out, I got a Blue Marvel, who does not get enough love. Wonder Man, Spectrum, the Black Panther, Beast, Wasp, and Spider-Man. Spider-Woman, I'm sorry. So I feel like I got a kind of well-rounded unit there. Good mix. And they are going to battle the Hidden, which is basically going to be all Ultimates villains. Evil Reed Richards, who is hidden, so to speak. He opens a portal, and apparently in that universe, it's kind of like become a pocket universe or collapsed upon itself. Just before it did, he was able to pull out Red Skull, the Hulk, Goblin, and Magneto. Now, if you read the Ultimate stories, all of these guys were just badasses on their own. So, them together, and they each one have a various reason for helping Reed. Because, Evil Reed is kind of a bit of a wordsmith. Kind of like the devil. He can promise them all what they secretly desire. And he's basically promising them all, if you help me overthrow this universe, I can get you to one of the universes where you can have what you want. Loved ones return, so forth and so on. So that was my Avengers.
That is interesting. Well, I have these listed in different orders, but I'm going to jump down to my Avengers because I had Avengers as well. You talk about having the Trinity and the Avengers, but I also looked at it like when I built team books, there's a trinity of teams that you can't not have. Avengers being the first one. And I don't know if my plot is as good as yours, but I will tell you that my team consisted of a lot of the same ones you have. I had Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, but mine would be Stark, She-Hulk, Black Panther, Namor, because I like having that kingly, dispute between Namor and Black Panther being two different nations but having to work together in the team. The Wasp, the Vision, Scarlet Witch, Wonder Man, Spectrum, and Daredevil, who's not going to be with the team the entire time. Because my team is going to be Baron Zemo has rebuilt the Masters of Evil, which is my villains. And I didn't get a chance to flesh out who all I wanted in that. I was struggling with that a little bit. The only person I know I want in there is Bullseye, because that's going to be Daredevil secretly working undercover for Black Panther inside the Masters of Evil to cause them dissension until he's discovered. I mean, so halfway through he would be discovered and then that's when he would change and join back to the Avengers because they would find him and, he would narrowly escape or they would have to save him, one of the two, but he would be in there to cause them. That's why in the first half of the books, the Masters come very close to defeating the Avengers or making their little steps to their plot of taking over the world come to fruition, and there's always something that stops him from doing it. That's because he's there feeding information back.
That's got a very Bendis vibe to it. I like that.
Yeah, and Black Panther is very good at setting up those little twists and plotting those little things. Like Cap is a great leader, but Black Panther is a sneaky leader.
He is.
So I
Yes.
could see him, doing that because Black Panther knows he's there, but him probably being the only one who knows that Daredevil's in there. That causes some of the strife between him and Namor because Namor feels like he's keeping secrets, and it's got to have something to do with his nation versus Atlantis because they don't get along very well. So that's some dissension in the Avengers ranks too that keeps them from fully defeating the Masters and just taking them in at the very beginning.
Well, that. My question is, does your Avengers reside in Stark Tower, Avengers Mountain, or the mansion? And
I
is
go back
Jarvis
to
there?
I go back to the mansion.
Thank you.
I'm not a fan of
Thank
any
you.
of those others, especially the
I'm not
mountain. The
either.
Avengers Mountain thing is kind of dumb to me, but I could deal with Stark Tower, but I'd rather go back to the mansion.
Yeah, to me, they have to be in the mansion, and Jarvis is a vital point of the book,
And
just
here's a
for
kicker.
various things.
They're at the mansion, but the Masters of Evil have risen and taken the old Avengers Hydro base, which was their secondary
Ooh,
place after the mansion. And
that's cool.
they have moved where it's at, but that's what they're using so that their base of operations can be mobile.
And Marvel, if you're listening in, we're printing money for you guys right now. Just saying.
Yeah, it'd take a while to flesh some of this out, but sure, go right ahead, steal away. So what
Yeah,
do you?
they can't screw it up too bad.
Well, you say that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you have for
For
your?
my second team book, you can't have a Marvel team with title, universe, whatever, without the Fantastic Four. So, and the only reason I went ahead, that was actually my third title, but I went ahead and jumped because I knew you were going there. And you
Yeah.
already stole my Annihilus villain. So, Annihilus is obviously my villain. And I mean, that's a pretty straightforward title. You got the Fantastic Four, the Annihilus, and a negative zone invasion. It writes itself. I mean, it's action, it's adventure, world-ending threat, it's cosmic, entities. What more do you need out of Avengers? So pretty straightforward. Now, it doesn't have to be layers like an onion. I left it like that.
So I will say I went Fantastic Four and I did the layers of the onion, and I didn't get a chance to really fully flesh them out. But my team is their main part of the team, right? The Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Thing, Human Torch. I do also have though as a caveat, and he's not the villain, but he does appear several times and actually have to help them. It would be Doom.
Oh.
The villain is actually Nathaniel Richards, Reed's scuzzy dad.
Oh, I like that.
That I want him to be messing with time and doing something to mess with time because he is from the future originally, and I don't know exactly where I wanted to go, but he was going to mess with time in some way that causes a lot of cosmic anomalies that the Fantastic Four are having to fix. So it's more of an adventure. They're going out and find, okay, this is happening. I need to fix this wormhole that's appearing here or whatever. Strange things that only Reed or Doom could fix, right? And then they find out that the cause of all of it's Nathaniel Richards, and he's got some nefarious plot that they have to stop by the end of it.
Another cool area you could really add to that would be somehow Nathaniel is using Franklin. I mean, all kids want their granddad. You know what I'm saying? So maybe he's playing on Franklin like, I'm not really a bad guy. Your dad's just telling you these things. Come with me, and he's manipulating the kid.
I got
because Valeria gets all the attention from Doom. She gets all the attention from Reed because she's a smart one. So even though he's the most powerful mutant out there, really, he don't get the attention.
And what you could do with that is actually have it be the teenage one. You remember when they went in the 90s, he went to the future and came back as Psy-Lord. Have him be the Psy-Lord teenage version, and then the young version, like the kid one that's, not even in his teens yet, is still with the family. So
that's pretty cool. Because what teen doesn't want to be rebellious against dad?
Yeah.
And at the same time, prove and typically when they're being rebellious, they're really just trying to prove their worth, so to speak. I like that.
Yeah.
And believe me, it was very hard for me to resist Doom as the villain.
Me too.
But I would almost feel like on all my titles, I was like, there's certain avenues that almost always are kickoff. And there's such great stories, but save them to year 2.
Yeah. Yeah. And Doom, I think, sometimes plays a good character as he's not really in his eyes, he's never the villain because it's his country and he's the ruler and all. But in this case, he's really not the main villain. Now, that doesn't mean he gets along with the Fantastic Four fantastically, but, he's going to
It is always what makes the best villains. Because the best villains, they never think they are the villain. They're the hero from their own point of view.
This is true.
And that is what always made Doom so interesting to me, was because he does, and from time to time he does interact with a family like that. I mean, he's the godfather of Valeria. I mean, and he takes up a lot of time with her.
Yeah.
Reed doesn't like it, but Sue, for whatever reason, does, which makes me wonder. But hey, but yeah, that's pretty cool, dude. I like it.
And I imagine that we probably got the same title for the third one as well, because you can't have this. You can't have a team title, and again, just like you can't have not Avengers, you can't not have Fantastic Four. I'm assuming you're going
Uncanny Avengers all the way. Uncanny Avengers. My lineup is very 90-ish. You got Professor Xavier, Cyclops, Jean, Wolverine, Storm, Gambit, Rogue, Colossus, Kitty. I put Havoc in there. Iceman, and Bishop. There's just enough there for a blue and a gold. And for the villains that they're fighting, they're going to need it. And you can have some guest stars here along the way. I mean, this is a year-long arc, so to speak. But they're fighting a group called the Family, which will be headed up by Mr. Sinister. But he's not really the leader. He is the manipulator in the back. All clones. Strife, Joseph, Madeline Pryor, and the husband she always wanted, the forgotten clone of Scott Summers, who shall be known as Blast.
That's an interesting one. I would read that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the Family. And they're all very powerful entities in themselves, but together with a common, enemy and goal of doing away with the X-Men to take their place in the world. I felt like it was something I would buy. Plus, I mean, you got your 90s throwbacks with the team selections. Blue and gold, I would probably have an issue or two where they're in the blue and gold outfits. The old classic team unis.
I will say that I actually had that idea as well, because mine is very similar to yours. I mean, there's some differences, but there is one group of them, because I will tell you up front that I did more than one team in here, and there's one team that I want to be in the school uniforms.
Well, kick it off as you're good.
So my last team book is Uncanny X-Men. So here's my kicker. I don't know if I could, because we didn't discuss this, but I want it to be two teams, and I want to alternate the story for both teams. At the end, they'll culminate together, but I want to alternate them, either if it's every month or if I could possibly have this as a bi-weekly book. 1 week would be on every 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks would be on Team 1 and Team 2, and you could call them blue and gold. I just said Team 1 and Team 2 for now, but my Team 1 is Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Archangel, Iceman, Beast, Rogue, and Gambit. And my Team 2 is Storm, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat, Colossus, Havoc, Cannonball, Banshee, and Forge.
Ooh.
So I went very 90s, but I tried to split them up and have like a tank on each team and type stuff like that. But for what I want to do in the books, though, for Team 1, I want them to be going up against Strife and the Mutant Liberation Front, which will include Magneto's old Acolytes team as well.
Oh.
So that they have more power, because you got to figure that's a powerful team they're going against.
Yeah.
But they will be fighting them on one front. On the other front, Team 2.
Is Fabian Cortez with them?
Probably so. I didn't even think about him specifically, but
because I can see some very interesting dynamic with him and Strife, just scummy wise, and then him kind of boosting Strife's power too. That could be very interesting.
And that fight is going to be the more out in public fight, because the Mutant Liberation Front, they do stuff out in the public. Team 2, Storm's team, would be going against the what would be a combination of the Dark Riders with some of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutant members joining them, like maybe like a Sabretooth joining the team or something like that. Somebody who'd been in the Brotherhood or Toad, or and then along with them, they will be backed up by the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse.
Ooh.
And I didn't pick out all the 4 Horsemen, but I do have one in particular because when the story culminates, this is kind of like the clandestine fight. The other is the more public fight. When the stories culminate at the end, because they're both being led by the same person in the background, which is going to be Apocalypse. And the reason that the war is going the way it is, where they're having to fight on 2 fronts, is because he's being advised by his Horseman of War, which will be Magneto.
Ooh. Wow.
So
I'll be honest, it was hard for me to resist Apocalypse, because I really started to go with Apocalypse. And, there's enough X-Men that have been Horsemen at this point.
Yeah.
His entire 4 Horsemen could have been former X-Men or current X-Men. So it was so hard to resist that pearl, so to speak.
And like the clandestine fight with Storm's team, that group with the Dark Riders, and like they all know they're working for Apocalypse, but Strife, since he hates him, does not know this. He's just being funded by an outside source, which he thinks is Magneto, which it might possibly be, since Magneto is the Horseman of War. But that's how he's advising Apocalypse to weaken the X-Men by splitting their forces. But now when they come back together and face them in a final battle at the end of the year, that could be that could be a 3-way fight, because Strife and MLF are not going to follow everything that Apocalypse wants to do.
But they've devised a plan for when that happens, because they know it's coming.
Yeah.
The Magneto and Apocalypse aren't 2 knuckleheads, so that'd be wow.
And you got to figure too, with some of these people on these teams who have been leaders in the past, whether it's even down to Banshee, but like Havoc, Cyclops, Storm, Cannonball. By the time they figure out what's going on, they're gonna build a plan that's gonna be able to fight both forces at once. I mean, you're not talking about people who are not strategically inclined.
And how cool would it be if that was the whole purpose of Cortez, to be with Strife the whole time, to actually be soften him up where he needs him enough to where without him, because he's going to be loyal to Magneto, obviously. That they can weaken him enough where they can just overthrow him and move on to the X-Men.
Yeah.
Damn, dude, I want you to write this now. Shit.
So that leaves us with just our dealer's choice one. So did you go solo or team?
I went solo, and I went in an area that you probably wouldn't expect from me. I went the Sentry.
Oh, wow.
Because he could be such an amazing character. And they've teetered on it a few times, but then they always fuck it back up with the Void shit and making him mentally unstable, so forth and so on. So the whole purpose of my year-long arc is the Sentry knows he's fucked up. He's tired of battling, the Void. He's tired of, being overtaken, being, crazy, so forth and so on. So he seeks out the High Evolutionary. As the High Evolutionary separated his own consciousness from his humanity to become smart.
Yeah.
So he knows that if anyone can do it, the High Evolutionary can separate him and the Void permanently, and then he can deal with the Void, trap it, kill it, whatever he needs to. So this is what he seeks him out for. But the High Evolutionary, he always has his own plans. He thinks if he separates the two, he can side with the evil of the Void, take over the world. So that's what the whole premise of the title is, and they wind up separating. And by the end of it, he destroys the Void completely. I'm doing away with that shit. You don't have to separate yourself. We know he's your Superman. Accept it. Embrace it. Do away with that shit that you use to try to say, oh, he's not really Superman. Do away with the Void. Have him deal with the High Evolutionary. Be fully right in his mind where he no longer battles mental demons and so forth, and just moving forward, he is your Marvel Superman. Use him as such.
That would be interesting. I'd actually like to see that, because that's, like you mentioned Blue Marvel earlier, that's, Sentry is somebody who's been, they started trying to utilize him, but they didn't know what they wanted to do, and I feel like he's just been kind of like flip-flopped so much nobody knows what to do with him.
I'll be honest, the only person that has wrote him well was Bendis. When they done New Avengers, he used him the way he should be used. then they went Dark Avengers and Void
Yeah.
came about, and he hasn't been worth a shit since. I mean, and I thought, I really don't even know what his status is in the Marvel Universe anymore, to be honest with you. I'm not sure exactly what he is. Somebody said I think Carnage or Null killed him in the similar fashion to how he killed Carnage at one time, ripping him half in space.
Yeah.
I think that was their way of trying to show how powerful Null was. I don't know.
That's exactly what they did. And he was doing that as revenge for how he destroyed one of his children in Carnage.
Okay.
I remember seeing that.
It's easy enough to bring him back. I mean, he floats into the fucking sun. Boom, boom, boom. He's back.
Yeah.
So what you got for your wild card?
So I went I went really different. I really or at least I tried to. So I went Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's not set in modern. It's not set in current day. I went back to a future setting with it. I'm not using the original Guardians team. I'm just using the name, but I want them to actually be not just the cosmic defenders. I want them to actually be the magic and cosmic. I want them to protect the entire galaxy from both of those. But I want to set it up as a kind of a galactic political mystery type thing. So let me give you, I don't have everybody in there, but I know that I want this to be a mix of new generation of heroes and some old ones who are still around. Mm-hmm. So like some of the old guard who would be the mentors for the team would be Quasar, because he's now living energy, so he'll be immortal. Nova Prime, and I don't know if I want that to be Richard Rider and say that they found some way to extend his life, or be somebody else. But it would be Nova Prime, whoever that is. The ancient one would be the Sorcerer Supreme at this time, and it would be Magic from the X-Men, because she's been shown with her demon blood, she's been shown to be extended life period. Plus, being a sorcerer, they tend to find a way to extend their life anyway. Fire Lord would be part of the group, so you have a powerhouse from the Heralds, because they're not dying anytime soon. And I've already used a couple other Heralds, so I used him. I want to have Bishop from the X-Men, because I want him to be back in his time period, his setting. But I want him to be part of this. And then I kept one more character, which is one that I almost completely missed, and this is what I was adding a few minutes ago, because I forgot I wanted to have Hulk, but I wanted it to be King Hulk and him be living on Sakaar.
Oh.
But old King Hulk, not Maestro, but kind of that age range.
Okay. Like if he hadn't went the Maestro route and he stayed on Sakaar.
Yeah. So that's the main old guard and the mentors. I don't know who the new ones would be, just because I didn't really flesh out all those new characters, right? Because this is a future setting. But the villain of this, and what I said would be interesting, I want this to be kind of like a galactic political type thing. So multiple races, including those from Negative Zone, trying to invade, or magical dimensions like some of Dormammu's mindless ones and stuff, are trying to. There's like border skirmishes between multiple empires. The Kree, the Shi'ar, the Badoon. Now the Negative Zone trying to come in, the Dormammu, and some of the mystical realm people trying to move into different planets that are part of other empires, almost like border skirmishes between them to see whose country line is going to be where. And all of this is a plot by a mysterious person that you don't find until like the last two issues to destabilize cosmic powers across multiple dimensions and the cosmos, so that they can take over as the ultimate leader for all of them, and it would be Kang the Conqueror.
Ooh.
So he's mastermind. You'll see him in like cameos, like like they did it with Apocalypse originally, where he's just a blacked out character there, or from behind, or whatever. You'll never know who it is until near the end, and he's just trying to destabilize everything, so that as these border skirmishes are happening, the Guardians are stopping some or fending off an incursion from another dimension. He's off in another corner, adding to his empire until he can get to all of them and actually take over the entire galaxy, and it be under King the Conqueror's rule.
I like that, man. That's wow. You thought that one out. I'll give you kudos on that one, buddy.
That was the one that's why I didn't flesh out some of the things. I was like, how do I want to do this? Because I want to do something, but I don't want it to be just cosmic. I don't want it to be just magical. And then I know I want Kane to be the enemy if we're going to be in the futures, but how do I want to play it out? So that one took a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I thought for a minute it was going to be Scar as a villain, to kind of Like he went this route while King Hulk is still here.
I had originally thought of putting Hulk in here as King Hulk, and I had forgot to add him to my list, which is what I was typing earlier, just because I was like, I didn't do anything with him, and he is a mainstay. I mean, I use She-Hulk and Avengers, but I didn't want to put Hulk in there because I never liked him in a team setting because he doesn't get along with people.
He doesn't play well with others. Not if you use him the way he's supposed to. If you use him like in Doc Banner type Hulk, okay, yeah. But then he's depowered a little bit. But to actually be the Hulk, he doesn't play well with others.
Yeah, and I thought the reason for him being in this is, well, he's king of his planet, so he does have to find a, he's on Sakaar and he's in charge, so he's got to find a way to make sure none of this stuff spills over into his domain.
Well, that was the one place also where he could remain Hulk, but be at peace, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I mean, it undone the rules of the Hulk a little bit. It may, because King Hulk or World War Hulk or however you want to put him was very strategic.
Yeah.
And brilliant military minds. I mean, that would be really, really cool. And I promise you, if you're going to step on his world's toes, you're going to get him step back.
Yeah. Well, that's why I want them to be dealing with. Like I said, they'd be dealing with something somewhere, and Kang's doing his part over here. But Kang's also inciting all these little fights. Like he's encouraging the Skrulls to go to the Kree border and fight or whatever.
All right. Well, if anybody's going to manipulate people, it's going to be Kang. I mean.
Yeah. I could, for me, if I look at like who's manipulating stuff, Mephisto, Kang, Apocalypse, they kind of do that. Sinister, they kind of do those sort of things.
I kind of honestly thought that's where you were going to go a little bit, was maybe Mephisto was trying to weaken up everybody so he could bleed, hell into the galaxy a little bit. But
if I hadn't
a lot better, actually.
If I hadn't already used, I thought about it at first, but I was like, yeah, but I want to use him in Doctor Strange, and I don't want to double dip there, so.
There you go. I mean, it's a vast area, and it can only go so far.
But with that, I think that gets us through all of our titles. So that takes us to Nerd Out. So for anybody who hasn't been here before, this is where we ask random questions about the topic of the day. We give our answers back, but with no prep time, we just have to think on our feet, which is very hard for some of us. But if you guys want to expand upon our answers, or talk about your own answers to the question, feel free to do so in the comments. And also, if you have ideas for some of the titles that we might have missed, or that you would like to see, or you want to expand on any of ours, feel free to do that in the comments as well. But with that, I'll open the floor to our Nerd Out questions. And Hassel, I will let you go first since you've been going first on all the stuff so far today.
All right, so since we have had zero time, and I have had no Nerd Out question in mind, here we go. Bonus round. You got one more book. What is it?
Ooh, one more book, man. I think I have to go solo again now, and I'm just trying to think of who would be a good solo character to follow. That's so hard for me because I don't follow as many solo books. I part of me wants to say Captain America, but I really don't want to do that. I want somebody who doesn't get a lot of love, and maybe Blue Marvel would be my solo title.
Oh, there we go.
And see how I can, he can do multiple things. He can be a powerhouse and have great fights and adventures, or he can do the Fantastic Four route because he is such a scientist and do let's deal with these things out here that we don't know the answer to, and go exploring as well. So I think there's a lot of possibility. I think that would be more of an open book and an issue by issue threat or maybe a small arc versus a long arc for his book, just to build upon his world, because I don't think we have too much of that, honestly.
No, a lot of that actually.
What would be your bonus book?
I'm a little stumped, I'll be honest. So I'm going to go with Captain Britain. And it is Brian. It is not going to be Betsy. She will be part of the book, since she's not in my X-Men. And villain-wise, I think I'm going to go simple. I'm going to go basic. I'm going to have Black Tom Cassidy and Juggernaut.
That would be interesting.
So I mean, that'd be a real fun title, I think. And I mean, Captain Britain's one that's always been conceptually so cool to me. It looks great. Yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing look. Power-wise, he's cool. And it just doesn't get enough love. I mean, because I think there's a huge disconnect for the fact that, he's more powerful in Britain than he is anywhere else. So American fans don't buy a lot of British books. But I mean, that could be pretty fun. So
That would be an interesting one.
I might would tweak his powers at some point so that he could be a little more spiffy in the U.S.
You know, now that I think about it, that would be one thing I would do too. Is if I did another book, if I did another team book, I would probably focus on like an international team and maybe do like Alpha Flight, but make them not just Canadian, but more international and not be just American characters in it. That
was actually one it popped in my head as I was sitting here thinking was Alpha Flight, because some of those characters are really cool. Like Vindicator has always been a really cool.
I love that one. Yeah,
character. I like that look. You know, it's amazing. But I mean, I would probably have to give them a more serious vibe and make them less of a joke. I mean, unfortunately, they kind of got knocked around as a joke for a long time because they're Canucks. But I'd serious them up a little bit and put a real solid tone to it. I'd probably go pretty dark with them.
I think I'd do them almost like if I was going to use them, maybe they're using the name of Alpha Flight, but it'd probably be more of almost like a Captain Corps, right? And have Captain Britain in it, have Guardian in it, maybe find a person from maybe Sunfire from Japan or somebody, just to say, okay, it's an international team and here's a representative from each who is a national symbol type character.
Have them break off from the Canadian government, so to speak, and maybe answer to just the United Nations or something.
I think so, and I'd keep the Alpha Flight name because they are going to be the first line of defense, and then I would have at least from the UN's perspective, obviously Avengers are still going to be your main team, but if Avengers are not answering to UN, have Alpha Flight and have Guardian be the leader, but you could have Captain Britain in there, you could have Sunfire, you could have all kinds of characters from different countries who are being represented.
Well, let's be honest. If you're in the Marvel universe and the Avengers fail, you got to have a backup plan as a government standpoint.
Yeah. Well,
there you go.
You might could even bring in some of the Eternals into it, like an Icarus or something, just to say, okay, representing different. You're representing now not just different nations but different cultures as well. Because you've already got Sunfire as a mutant, have Icarus as an Eternal. That would be interesting.
I like that.
But before we dwell on that too long, I'll give you my question. Mine was just focused on Marvel, but instead of what we're doing, what is your most underrated Marvel title that you want to see rebooted with better stories?
Oh, Ghost Rider. He just doesn't get enough love. And the last 20 some odd years, unfortunately, he's just had shit reboot after shit reboot just for the sake of throwing a Ghost Rider title out there occasionally.
Yeah.
The book hasn't had any real love since it was discontinued in the 90s. I would put a top-notch writer on it, a great artist on it. I would pull them out of the being in hell every fucking 2 issues and put them back in the real world, focusing on real world powers. He doesn't always have to fight a fucking demon or area of hell, Yeah. He'll be a spirit of vengeance who goes forth writing shit.
He could go out and deal with like just a cult leader or something, somebody who's having people sacrifice themselves. That's what
made the 90s one so great, because a lot of, like what Hellgate, he was a criminal. Fucking Blackout, he was a murderer. When he fought Scarecrow, you're talking about like a cultish, killer, murderer. I mean, he fought a lot of these people like that right there before he, got too far into the supernatural. So, I mean, it's pretty cool.
And those were difficult for him to fight because he's not like a detective who's going to figure out who's behind this thing. He just, okay, here's somebody who did wrong. I'm going to punish them. And
he's a force of nature.
There's somebody else who's pulling the strings from far down the road. That would be good.
So what do you got?
I went with the New Warriors because I don't think that we have any kind of. I know they've done like Champions and Young Avengers and stuff, but let's be honest, none of those have lasted. New Warriors was the longest lasting next generation set of heroes that they've had. It wasn't just an X-Men group, right? And I break that off separately from the X-Men just because there's been so many generational X-Men teams that keep popping up, and we've used some of them in other places and we see them in other places, but you don't see anything done with half of the New Warriors team. I mean, most of them are just occasional pop up here or there for whatever little purpose you need them for. But that was your next generation of heroes at that time in the 90s. I mean, they were your That's where you went to if you wanted to see somebody besides the Avengers and Fantastic Four and the old guard that was out there for the majority of the Marvel universe, not
Maybe
just
a
the mutant
more
area.
relatable hero to the younger kids at the time.
Yeah, I mean, they even went to the point. Even Ben Riley, Scarlet Spider, before he took Peter's place when he left, he was on the New Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have nothing out there for those characters that are mid generation or that teenage generation, So
yeah,
I would
pretty
go back
cool.
to them.
Which I like Young Avengers. They just seem to not do anything with them after that storyline with Doom and Scarlet Witch. Was it Children's Crusade or whatever it
Yeah,
was?
well, that's the problem.
It was a really good story, but they just didn't do anything after that. And, they tried to bring them back, during this whatever this last storyline of bullshit is they did, but
that's the thing I'll say, that Marvel may have a group or a team or maybe even family of stuff sometimes, but their legacy stuff is not that strong. DC has a much stronger legacy type. Like the new Young Avengers was supposed to be the legacy. Like Patriot is supposed to be a young Captain America, but it didn't come off that way. But when you look at, say, let's just use Flash from DC, you got Barry, you got Wally, you got Impulse, you got Jay Garrick. You have a generational Flash for every one of them, and it's part of a family legacy. You don't really. Yes, you have Captain America, you have Winter Soldier, you have U.S. Agent, but they don't feel generational. It's just like, okay, you're the same person in the same standing. You're peers, so you're not really generational.
Marvel's comes off almost as knockoffs in a lot of ways. I mean, it's not that they're not good characters. They just aren't treated of value for longevity, and they just come off over time as being a knockoff.
Well, and they're not carrying
or a cheap plug-in, maybe that's better.
Yeah, and they're not carrying on the legacy. Like War Machine is not carrying on the legacy of Iron Man. He's a peer to Iron Man. He's basically a sidekick to him a lot of times. It's like Falcon and Captain America. They're both called Captain America now, so there's not really a legacy. It's just two different Captain America doing two different things.
And honestly, I think Falcon's he's an interesting enough character. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm just telling you. I mean, let's be honest. Okay, you're a citizen in the Marvel universe. A fucking supervillain just shows up. Do you want Falcon to show up as Captain America, or do you want the real Captain America to show up? If my freedom was on the line, I want the real Cap showing up, or Falcon to show up as Falcon. One of the two.
But
I don't want great value Captain America showing up.
But it's not.
Or great value Iron Man.
Yeah, and it's not one of those things where you realize, okay, if Steve Rogers dies, that's the next, best choice to step in. He might be the best choice to step in, but you don't see it clearly. Like if Barry Allen dies, you know who's going to be the next Flash. It's Wally West. If Wally dies, you know who's next. It's going to be Bart Allen.
Now, literally, you already know in the Marvel universe, if something happens to Cap, you're going to have a battle with Winter Soldier and Falcon to see who's going to be the next. Or at least a long discussion that shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, and then if you go back to DC, I mean, even their one who is more peer setting, like Green Lantern, you still feel like Kyle Rayner is a legacy to Hal and John and Guy. He's not the same. He's the next generation of them. He's not.
Oh, Batman! Dick Grayson is the obvious step in.
Yeah.
It's not going to Damian. It's not going to Jason. I mean, they might have a battle of the cow, but it's going to always be Dick Grayson.
Right, and if something happened to Dick, then the next choice is probably going to be Tim Drake, but you still got those other characters who are part of the legacy, but they just don't fit taking the mantle, but you don't have that at all to me in Marvel. Like, there is nobody who's taking someone else's mantle, because it's like, okay, we're peers, or I don't need you at all. That's kind of how it feels a lot of times. Now, I will say, that's the only thing I think DC really beats Marvel out on a lot of times.
Yeah, they're long-term things in some aspects good, and it's rebootish in others.
Yeah. But with that, I think that brings us almost to a close this week. So let's make sure we do our normal shout out to all of our friends out there. So we've got Mr. Daniel Garcia, creator of Zyber Ronin, which should be in everybody's hands fairly soon.
Very soon.
Yeah, he was finishing that up now. You can find him on Facebook at Daniel Garcia or on Instagram at D Garcia Comics. Check out some of our other friends like Mr. Chris Daly, host of Fueled by Weird podcast. You can find him on Instagram at Fueled by Weird and on his podcast Fueled by Weird, where he covers all things nerdy and weird. I know he does a lot of good reviews of like books and stuff coming out and comics and all. I've been catching some of those, so be on the lookout for his content. We got our content creator and autism activist and toy reviewer, Miss Mandy Lynn. You can find her on Instagram at Kushi Mama or on YouTube at Doodles Toy Report. Mr. August Aguilar from Strange Film Studios. Remember, keep an eye out for his new project, He Comes to Kill. I know he released, I know we saw that. Has he released a full version of that, or is that?
I think his
Kickstarter
is fully funded at this point, and they're going into production, was the last I heard.
Okay. That's what I thought I saw last, but I didn't want to speak wrong. That's why I was asking you. And last but not least, make sure you check out our extended Nerdy Manroom family member, Big Rob. He can be found on his channel at Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food, where he drops new reviews and unboxings of items, as well as shares stories from life on the road as only Big Rob can. And while you're out there checking everybody else out, make sure you check out our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. You can find them on the internet at zonecollectibles@gmail.com, on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles, or in their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Make sure you visit them for all your nerdy needs and help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And with that, I think that almost brings us to a close this week, Hassel, but we need to tell everybody where they can find us at first.
Yeah, why don't you come find us on YouTube? Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share, do all that good stuff. We are on Twitter at Nerdy MR Show. We are on Instagram at the Nerdy Manroom Show and Facebook at Hassel Hutchison. Seek us out. Please share us. Tell us we're assholes. Whatever you want to do. Like, comment, subscribe.
It always helps us out. And with that, that brings us to a close. But join us here next time. We're going to discuss some collecting grails, which I know we've promised a couple of times, and we've been sidetracked multiple times, so we're finally going to get to it. And until then, live nerdy and make yours Marvel.